feature for if you have any questions. We are going to record this, so you should have seen a little blue button pop up on your screen. So for those Wildcats who can't join us today, we'll record this and send out the link for everyone who would still like to watch the content. So we'll give it probably one more minute and then we'll get started. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Lacey John. I am the Director of Alumni Career and Professional Development, and we are excited to have you join us today for this amazing panel. This is a webinar to hear career advice from alums who have successfully navigated a volatile job market right out of college, as well as later in their careers. And we want to hear their advice so that we can help you in your careers. Before we get started, I wanted to quickly thank all of those that were involved in the planning and production of this event. Today is a true collaboration between the Alumni Career Lab and the Department of Student Engagement and Career Development. Together, both of our units work hard to help support our Wildcats find careers that they love and thrive in the careers that they are in. So today's discussion is going to be recorded to view on demand, so you can find the link and other career resources for students and alumni on our websites, career.arizona.edu and arizonaalumni.com/careerlab. Before we get to the panelists and to your questions, I would like to introduce Justin Finnerty, the Assistant Director of Employer and Alumni Engagement from Student Engagement and Career Development, to share more about what to expect from today's event and how we want to support Wildcats moving forward.
Great, thanks, Lacey. And thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I'm really excited to be here and to be partnering with Lacey and the Alumni Association to connect with our Wildcats. As she mentioned, I'm the Assistant Director for Employer and Alumni Engagement. So my role is to connect alumni and organizations here in the Phoenix metro area to the university. I mean, I'm based in Phoenix, but my reach extends, all over the place, wherever we have Wildcats interested in connecting back to the university with job and internship opportunities or professional development experiences. We're always looking for the opportunities to bring our community together. And so, a little bit about why we're here today, with the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus and the onset of a global pandemic, we've all witnessed some very radical changes and shifts in our daily lives, not to mention in the world of work. And so as my area, which is the student engagement and career development area, continues to support students through these unprecedented times, students and graduates, there are a couple of things that we've been able to learn and acquire over the last number of months, to help continue to connect students and graduates to opportunities. One of the first things that we discovered right out the gate in surveying many of our graduates and upcoming graduates is that when students were asked what is one thing during this time that would benefit them in their career development, overwhelmingly the number one response was connections to alumni. They wanted to be connected. They wanted to increase their network and be connected to the Wildcat community, followed by access to jobs and internship opportunities. And so that's very important piece of information, right? And understanding that our currently enrolled students have this desire and longing to engage with those who've gone before them and have, ventured out into the workforce and are doing great things. And then what do we know as well on our end in regard to the hiring community? Though we have had a huge dip in job opportunities, we've had internships that were rescinded, jobs that were rescinded. We do know in my office in student engagement and career development that there are opportunities available. This past September, we hosted our annual fall career days. It's a 3-day college recruitment event. We had over 130 companies with legitimate opportunities that recruited over the course of those 3 days. Our Eller Business School hosted their normal event in the fall. Again, having some great success with employers. Our education school, our computer science program, we're still seeing engagement from employers with opportunities. It's just that these opportunities, many of them have shifted in regard to what we might have thought we were looking for at the beginning of your career journey. This whole movement to everything being conducted online in a virtual space is a different space for both our employers and our students. But there is opportunity available. And at the conclusion of this program today, I'll talk a little bit more about some resources and immediate events coming up here in the near future that you could take advantage of to, again, help you with your employment needs. So having said that, I'm very excited and interested to hear today about the career journeys of some of our other alumni who they themselves also experienced a very challenging work environment when they left our institution. And so with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Lacey.
Thank you, Justin. I think that adds great depth and context to our discussion today and why it's so important to hear from our alumni. And so let's get to it. I have some introductions for our fantastic panelists, and trying to get their bios into one short little blurb was very hard because they are very successful and highly accomplished. But I will do my best. First up, we have Nicolette Daily, who, after going back to school and graduating in 2008 with an undergraduate degree in accounting, Nicolette went on to pursue her master's degree in accounting and graduated in 2010. Nicolette is deeply involved in the Tucson community and philanthropic work. Out of college, Nicolette held several financial positions with companies like RNA CPAs, Ludwig and Kluwer and Company, and the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. And now she serves as the Chief Financial Officer for the Primavera Foundation here in Tucson, Arizona. Next up, we have Jared Cohen, a 2009 graduate who majored in communications. Jared participated in many activities, including Bobcat Senior Honorary, Sigma Phi Epsilon, and ASUA, also known as the Associated Students of the University of Arizona. Since graduation, Jared has held several positions in the sports industry, including event operations, broadcasting, sports writing, and digital production. Now, as the Digital Communications Manager for Troon, he oversees social media, email marketing, and in-house video production for the leading golf management company. Next up, we have Hunter Lindgren, a 2020 graduate of Marketing and Business Management. Hunter was very involved on campus, and he was part of the Eller Leadership Board, Chain Gang, the Arizona Ambassadors Honorary, and he was the 2019 Homecoming King here on campus. He's also held several positions on campus, such as the Bear Down Network Student Ambassador and Lead Professional Development Associate for Eller College of Management. As of recent, he is now working as a client strategy intern at Tenuity. And unlike the rest of our panelists, Hunter can provide some real-time experiences from navigating today's job market as a recent grad. And last but not least, we have Charles Wallen. Charles is a 2009 graduate who majored in theater arts and a hybrid minor of communications and leadership. Charles was also very involved as a student on campus. He was part of programs such as the Bobcat Senior Honorary, Zona Zoo, ASUA Student Government, and after graduation, Charles held a wide range of positions, including marketing manager for Lyft and a customer experience escalations lead at Truro. Now, Charles has 2 careers. By day, Charles is an associate of major gifts for the University of California, Hastings College of the Law. And in addition to his full-time job, Charles is also a sports broadcaster at the Pac-12 network. He specializes in soccer play-by-play and calls matches for the Oakland Roots of the USL Championship and San Francisco City Football Club. He also hosts pre- and post-game broadcasts for the San Jose Earthquakes. Isn't this going to be awesome? We're going to have a great panel. Thank you for being here today. And while your experiences and journeys are unique and different, I think there is a lot that you can share to help our audience no matter where they are on our career journey. So let's get this discussion moving with some questions. In today's format, I will ask the question to one of our panelists just to get the conversation rolling, but I encourage all the panelists to share their thoughts and insights. If you as the audience have questions, be sure to use the Q&A feature on your screen. All right, let's get going. So the first discussion question I have here relates to just generally, what are some of the challenges that you faced coming out of college? And how did you end up overcoming them? Hunter, since you are the most recent graduate, why don't you speak first and then kick off the conversation for all the other panelists?
Yeah, so I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for the kind introduction, Lacey. So I graduated this spring in the May of 2020. And I'm sure like most of our audience, both students and alumni who might be facing this issue, is definitely a big task and challenge. I think in my head, you or maybe most people's heads, you kind of have this goal or dream of what happens post-college. You kind of work on that throughout your 4-year or however many years college career. And so for me, kind of one of the biggest challenges I seem to face was getting able to kind of understand that that can change. You might not be able to move off to a new city and start a job right away. You might not lock an offer in months in advance. I think seeing a lot of my peers and students doing that also added a challenge. But being able to kind of come to terms with that and then work on what I can do in the moment was a big kind of impact on how I was able to find success. And so it definitely didn't happen overnight. I spent a majority of my summer, almost all of it, job searching and applying to jobs. And a big kind of step for me for kind of overcoming that wanting to get a job was starting with networking. And I know we're going to get into this a lot later, but for me, that really was the foundation for getting to know people in the industry I want to get into. I wanted to work in advertising and marketing, learning from them, like what kind of tools can I add while I have this time post-graduation to maybe make myself more competitive in the job process. And then also having connections with them and at the companies that they work at. So if one day, obviously there wasn't a lot of jobs open in the beginning of summer, but as the summer kind of went on, and hopefully for all of you in the future, things will continue to open up and you'll be able to find those opportunities and then utilize your network to kind of do that. So kind of overcoming that struggle of so many things changing at once and those expectations having to kind of mold and shift, I think was a big struggle, but just focusing on what you can do in the moment really can help play out in the long run for sure. So yeah, I'll also love to hear from my panelists. Like many of you, since I'm a recent grad, I'm excited to hear what they have to say as well.
Well, I guess I'll jump in. So my situation is slightly different, though I did graduate from the U of A during time of recession. Unfortunately, during recession, accountants do really well. We love a time of recession because everybody comes running to us for help. So when I left the U of A, my career path was a little bit more set, but I had shared with my colleagues here and with Lacey that previous to that, my first time out of college, so graduating from the U of A was my second career. The first time I graduated, I had majored in journalism and minored in poli-sci, and I had found out that I'm not really good at either of those things. And so, you know, in that case, there's not much you can do. It doesn't matter if the economy is great. If you're not great at what you think you want to do, you've got to change paths. And so when I got out of college back in San Francisco at that time, I ended up going into the construction field, which probably would have been one of the last things in the world that I would have thought I would go into. But at the time I needed a job and I needed to get my life started, which, you know, is probably the situation that some of you all are in. And while I knew nothing about construction, nor was I that interested in it, there was a job opportunity that just by reading it and researching that company, which of course, before I even applied to a job, I would research the company. They seem to have a lot of, they just seem to be a great company in the city of San Francisco. And I thought that there might be some opportunities with that organization. So even though that wasn't the job I was looking for, I thought that that organization would bring me opportunities, which it did. So I applied, and it was a low level, entry level admin assistant type job. And I ended up working my way up. And again, here I am in an industry that I'm not that interested in, but if you're a curious person, if you like to learn, and if you're dedicated to pushing your career and yourself forward, even in a situation where you may not know your environment well, know the industry well, you can find yourself learning it. And so I did. I dug into learning about construction. I dug into learning about project management. I dug into learning about administrative things that are done in a company like that. And within 5 years, I was the operations manager of the organization. And that had me working with the accounting department as well as with the project managers, which set the stage for my future second career in accounting. So I think what I learned from that experience was to be flexible, to be open to, this may not be my dream job. This may not be what I thought I was going to do. This may not be where I thought I was going to end up, but how can I make the most of that? And how can I, if I'm going to end up in a different industry or a different place than I wanted to be, how can I pick the place that might give me the most opportunity for the future when I do get back on track, or when I do figure out what I really want to do. So that was some of my experience. And definitely researching where you're going, even if you feel like you don't have a lot of options, you still want to know the place that you are looking to go to. So when I learned about this company and this opportunity they had, in a lot of ways, it felt like, I hope I get this job so I can eat tomorrow. But also I still had to take care that if it wasn't the right place for me, that I don't just go there, and so I think that's kind of that thing that I learned from an adult who told me that. And I would have never thought, I would have taken any job you offered me, but being a little bit picky really did help set me on the right path.
Nice. Well, I can jump in next. Good stuff, Nicolette. My name is Jared Cohen. I'm currently the digital communications manager at Troon out of our corporate office. A little bit about Troon is we manage over 400 properties in the golf and hospitality industry around the world. In the sales and marketing department, I assist all of the clubs that are opted in for support in that realm with their social media efforts, their marketing efforts, their website, digital, video, all of that good stuff. It's a really good time. I also oversee the corporate messaging for all of those as well. My path to get here was kind of crazy. It was a roller coaster. I graduated in 2009 in pretty much the height of the recession. And the story I like to share is literally on one day in the final weeks of my college tenure, I had two professors tell me two different things on the same day. One was saying there was, some things going on with tuition potentially going up, or changes to structure for college and finances. And they were saying it's a really good time to graduate because there's a lot in flux right now. Then the next class, I had someone talking about the market and the recession and saying it's pretty much the worst time possible to graduate right now. So a lot of us and my friends and people I spent the last 4 years felt like we were in limbo, like we didn't know what we were going to do and how we were going to be perceived and how we were going to usher in our careers. And I really felt the wrath of it because I graduated with my degree in communication and I started networking before I graduated. Initially, I was trying to get into the sports broadcasting field or media, and no one was hiring. The farthest I got was 2 phone interviews with 2 different news stations. One was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which I've never been. The other one was in Beaumont, Texas, which also I had never been, and I never made it further than that. but I started networking like crazy locally, thinking that might be my only way to break in. And it's interesting. I got to know Brian Jeffries, the voice of the Wildcats, my senior year of college. And I heard cotton wind that at the time, this was before the Pac-12 network, that the U of A was going to be starting their own sports network. And so I was like, well, I got to get in on that, because that's an excuse to get back to Tucson and maybe continue to live the college days instead of being a real person. And so I called Brian and was like, hey, I'm going to be in Tucson. Didn't know if you wanted to catch up, get lunch or something like that, just to see if he was around or available. He said he was. So I drove to Tucson just to meet with Brian Jeffries, just for the sake of networking and him remembering me and having a dialogue. That didn't amount to anything other than me being a spotter for him in the broadcast booth for ASU U of A game when they came up to Phoenix. But it's stuff like that that made me realize that I just got to be aggressive. I started networking with people in the local Fox Sports Arizona affiliate. Their coordinating producer I got to know just for the sake of getting to know. I interned at then Sports 620 KTAR. Now it's Arizona Sports 98.7, the ESPN affiliate here in Phoenix. I interned there. I started networking with them like crazy. And ultimately, maybe less than a year in, I got offered part-time jobs with them. And at the time, you'll take anything. I applied to work at Macaroni Grill. And if there's people here that are fans of Macaroni Grill, that's great. And I'm not going to tell you not to be anymore. But my story was as a product of trying to just get a server job somewhere with a college degree. I showed up at Macaroni Grill one day. They make you fill out a test to see if you're even qualified. After an hour or almost an hour and a half of going through that process, they tell me, well, you're qualified, but we're not hiring. It would have been really nice if they told me that they weren't hiring before I did the test and did all that. So I couldn't get a job anywhere. So when a couple entities offered me part-time jobs, I took them, and I took them both. And I did that for about a year and a half. In that span, my then fiance, now wife, before we got married, found out we were expecting our first child. So I'm working 2 part-time jobs now, and I'm about to be a dad. So I grabbed a third job, and I was working 3 jobs for about 6 months, averaging 65 to 70-hour work weeks. And it was a grind, and it felt like I never slept. But what I really paid attention to was, how can I maximize what I'm doing from each of these jobs? I'm at KTAR, I'm at Fox Sports Arizona, I'm at the Four Seasons in Scottsdale, and all 3 of them helped me with 3 different things. And it made me realize that though I might not have the history and the qualifications from a tenure standpoint or having previous full-time jobs, there are a lot of skills that I obtained for my next job. At Fox Sports Arizona, I made sure I learned how to edit, how to use a camera, how to stand in front of a camera, how to record, how to carry on media sessions with professional athletes and college athletes. Same thing at KTAR, but on the radio side. And then at the Four Seasons, talking in front of people, being open, being outgoing, speaking a certain way, presenting yourself a certain way. And finally, I got a job opportunity with Sports 360 AZ, which is an Arizona sports website covering local sports, high school through the pros. It's run by Brad Sesmat. And I was able to go into that interview and not tell him that I couldn't do anything. Like, he asked if I could do X, Y, and Z, and I said yes to all of it. It made me realize all those crazy experiences that I had really paved the way for me to be a really versatile value to a company that needed someone that could be a Swiss Army knife. And the media, gone are the days of showing up with the camera and a microphone and presenting the news and then leaving. You got to be able to shoot, report, edit, interview, all of that stuff. So that kind of has fueled what I am today, and making it so that I always want to be known as a versatile employee of a company, a versatile associate. I want to be known as someone that, just because it's not my job description, I provide value to the company because I'm not afraid to learn new things, and I'm not afraid to approach or attack different aspects of our business to provide value. And that's how I got this job with Troon. They were looking to hire a marketing manager. I had never worked for an agency. I had never had the job description that said marketer or sales. I had been in broadcasting and the media, but I walked into the interview and I told them all the crossover that I had done from working in these different fields and why that applies to exactly what they're looking for. And ultimately, it helped me get the position I'm in today, and I'm truly thankful for it. So while it was a grind at the beginning, it felt like it had no positive end in sight. It felt like it took forever just to get a full-time job with benefits. We grinded it out, and I still have a long way to go. I'm not by any means satisfied with where I'm at, but it was a good launching point to a career that I've been able to form.
Well said, Jared. And I had a very similar experience, and just want to say, pleasure to be here with everybody. Pleasure to be here chatting with everybody that's within the Wildcat family and the Wildcat community. And shout out to Justin and Lacey for helping putting this on, and my panelists, Hunter, Nicolette, and Jared. I'm Charles Wallen. I have two careers. I'm an associate major gift officer, and I'm in sports broadcasting as well. Right after graduation, I was a bit of a mess. I was a bit of a mess because I loved the U of A so much, and I didn't really quite get my brain to work in a way that was like, this is over and you need to start your career now. And so for me, one of the challenges was just trying to kind of temper my expectations of what the heck I was going to do, similar to what Hunter just chatted about earlier. And also some comparison to other folks in my class that may have already gotten a job or were just off and running. So after college, I actually moved back home with my parents for a little bit, and I knew I wanted to work in sports. And I knew that being able to get to be a sports broadcaster, you weren't going to be able to be the NBA on NBC broadcaster the next day. It's a long, long pathway. And in order to work in sports, you really have to be able to take any job, similar to what Jared said. And I had the opportunity to intern at the San Jose Earthquakes MLS team right before graduation, and the summer before my senior year. And then after graduation, I continued to chat with my contacts. Well, I was in the PR and communication sphere there, and the only open role that they had was in sales and in sponsorship sales. And throughout discussions, throughout about a year after May, June 2009 to around April 2010, I was finally able to land that gig. Now, I had other opportunities. I had been up for an internship with the Giants, the SF Giants, who that year had won the World Series in 2010. And I was able to be able to make a little bit of an income coaching youth soccer through some connections that I have as well. I ended up getting the job, obviously, in April of 2010, but it took me about a year to figure out, well, what am I doing? What's going on here? And I literally had no plan, nothing going on in my head. I just had the degree, smiley red and blue heart, nice little, A lapel that was on my heart for the rest of my life. And I wasn't organized. I wasn't put together enough, really, and just to be as honest as possible. So having some semblance of a plan is helpful. But also, I just want to say, your path is your path, and there's no magic A to B to C to D. You're going to do it how you do it, and your path is your path. Obviously, if you want to be a lawyer or a doctor, you would go on to those different schools or colleges. But learning other skills in addition to whatever you want to be throughout your journey is important. And similar to what Jared had mentioned, I'm very much in the category of I want to be able to do many different things. I don't want to be a specialist in X, Y, and Z, although I do commentate soccer and I am a sports broadcaster. But you do have to be versatile. You have to be a team player, and you have to be able to provide input on many different topics on your company, regardless of what position you're going to be in. So my big advice is temper expectations, and also your path is your path, not anybody else's path. And keep your blinders on as much as you can. I know it can be distracting, but ultimately, keep persevering. And we'll talk about networking in a little bit.
Lacey, may I address the question that's been asked?
That's exactly what I was going
Yeah.
to do.
Oh,
So
okay.
Thanks, Nicolette. I was going to jump in real fast and say that we do have a question, I think, that would work right into this point of the
Yes.
conversation. So, and the question is, did you all know what field you wanted to go into or what job you wanted when you graduated?
So I want to share the story, especially for any of you who might have been in the accounting program. You might recognize some of the names. When I was in accounting, I was having a conversation, when I was still a student, I was having a conversation with Katie Maxwell and a gentleman who was a tax professor who's moved to Texas A&M. But I told the two of them, not only did I never want to be an accountant, my mom was an accountant. And some of you may have heard this joke of mine before, but I always say, you might as well just go ahead and be your parents because you're going to become them one way or another, right? I did not want to be an accountant because my mom was an accountant. And I thought accounting was I thought it was dumb. So here I am now at the U of A, getting my master's in accounting, the last thing in the world I thought I'd do. And I say to Katie and Kirsten, these two professors, I say, I never want to be a CFO. I don't want to deal with the stuff that CFOs deal with. I would never, nope, I don't want to do that. I want to be an auditor for the rest of my life. Katie Maxwell was on the hiring panel for my first CFO position. And she said to me, I seem to recall you saying you never wanted to be a CFO. So why would you like this job right now? So talk about your words coming back to bite you in the behind. Here I'm having, and of course she was, kind of teasing me because by then she knew. But so to answer that question, absolutely not did I know what I wanted to do. As a matter of fact, I thought I knew what I didn't want to do, which is exactly what I'm doing now. I think the theme here that we've all that my fellow panelists and myself have shared is being flexible and tempering expectations. And, I would say never, because it's true. There are parts of being a CFO that are difficult and challenging. All the parts that I was talking about that day, they're still here. And I don't love those parts. I don't love every part of my job. Some of them are hard and I wish I could avoid them somehow. But as I worked my way through my career, I started to realize that, first of all, I'm only going to grow if I am challenged and if I take on those hard roles. And somebody needs to do them. And why can't it be me? Why do I have to be scared of them? So there was that. But also, just being flexible and realizing that you might change over years. What you think you want to do now may change. You might get a great opportunity in whatever job you do start in that leads you to another opportunity, which is something that you never thought you wanted to do, maybe just because you didn't know enough about it. And so maybe now that you know more about it, you're like, actually, I do want to do that. So for those of you who don't know what you want to be, don't know what field you want to go to, don't know what industry you want to go in, take it from the journalism poli sci, never going to be an accountant, never going to be a CFO person, that you can do everything you thought you never wanted to do and actually find yourself very happy. You will grow as a person and you will grow with your job. And also, just quickly, the theme that I especially heard Jared and Charles talking about, doing everything and, having a lot of tools in your tool case. I worked at a high-end car dealership. I worked in construction. Of course, I was a cocktail waitress and worked in fast food like everybody does at some point, right? I have had an array of jobs, and every week at least in my job as the CFO of a nonprofit, something from one of those other jobs helps me attack a task or a challenge that I have at this place. How would knowing how to manage a $15 million construction project in downtown San Francisco help me at a nonprofit in South Tucson? Well, believe it or not, those things do connect. And so I take all that experience I took from all those other jobs that I didn't necessarily want or choose, and it helps me be the best CFO that I can be at Primavera. So especially if you don't know what you want to do things that help you be better at what you will do someday.
It can be a good segue from Nicolette as she talks about how you're going to change as you get older. I am the truest testament of that to that. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, like my man Charles Wallen is currently doing and doing a great job of. I wanted to be on TV calling basketball, football, baseball games. I knew what I wanted to do out of college. And I started to make my way through that industry, working some of the worst jobs you can take on for a broadcast, but at least you were involved. And then I became a dad. I was very quickly, I graduated in 2009. By started 2013, I had 2 young girls. My wife worked your typical 8 to 5, and I was working nights and weekends, and because that's when sports are played, especially during football season. I'm covering high school football on Friday night. I'm at the ridiculous 8 p.m. kickoffs for Pac-12 football games, whether it was U of A or ASU, and being up till 3 or 4 in the morning working, and then having to wake up and be a dad at 7 o'clock the next morning because you don't want to miss out on stuff. And I found over time that the allure of being around professional athletes and being paid to show up at sporting events and doing all that, it kind of wore off, and I kind of found myself, 1, wanting to be around my family more, and 2, different aspects of our business were appealing to me more than sticking a microphone in Rich Rod's face, which he never liked. So I found that finding the creative ways of driving traffic to our website and using content to drive traffic to our website via social media and other avenues was something I became more passionate about. And that led to my career of being in marketing and being able to work a 8 to 5 job myself, so I can have nights and weekends so that my whole family can be together. So to Nicolette's point, things will evolve, you'll change. I tell college kids all the time that unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an architect, you go to college to figure out what you're good at and what your passions are. You don't necessarily go to college for anything in particular unless your schooling tells you that you have to. And I'm a true example of that, where I figured out that I like being on. I like to be public speaking. I like to be around people. I didn't think I'd ever be a marketer, but here I am. And you just have to figure out who you are and place yourself in the right positions and do what's best for you and your family, and it'll work out in the end.
Piggybacking on that and what Jared had to say, in addition to my sports broadcasting, I also have another career, and that's also been in sales and in sports and in technology. And in order to make it as a broadcaster, again, unless you have the full-time gig, which is a very rare thing to have, and kind of cobbling it all together, I have had to be able to pivot and had a secondary career in technology, in sales, in sponsorship. And so in 2013, I was one of 50 people that helped launch Lyft. And we basically called up drivers that wanted to drive for Lyft. And they were excited and kind of pumped. And obviously everybody kind of knows what Lyft has become today. For me, I was just in the beginning stages. And so about a year and a half after that, I left in a very, it was a very entry level role for me, but it was being on the phones, just getting people excited about driving for Lyft in the very early stages. And then I also have taken on a customer service role as recent as 2 years ago at a company called Turo, which does peer-to-peer car rentals, just doing customer service, a 9 to 5 desk job coupled with weekends and nights doing broadcasts in addition to that. And now I'm at Hastings Law School. And so I chat with alumni about giving major gifts to the school and giving back to UC Hastings. But again, I just kind of wanted to segue back on, your pathway is your pathway. You will learn versatility. You will learn different ways of how to be versatile, given many challenges along your pathway that will be I think it's part of human nature, to be honest with you, that you'll learn these skills with any challenge that comes your way. And there will be challenges. I've been let go from jobs before. I've been laid off from jobs before. I've been on unemployment before. While, I might sit here and say, that's embarrassing. At the same time, I've learned everything from those types of experiences, and those have made me stronger as a person. And those have helped build me into continuing to double down into sports broadcasting, which I'd like to be full-time at that someday, but I'm not quite there yet. So I hope that answers the question there.
Excellent. There is another question in the chat, and I think it's an important topic to discuss. Jared, you kind of mentioned this in your opening remarks, but the importance of mentorship, and how do you mentor, or find a mentor, especially if you're not outgoing and you might be a little shy. How do you go about building those professional connections and then using them to your advantage later on? So Jared, do you want to maybe kick that off?
Yeah, sure. I'm sometimes too outgoing sometimes, so I don't know if I can help with the people that maybe are a little shyer. But I think that's just the most important thing for me was finding people who are in positions that can make an impact for you. Not necessarily just finding a random friend or someone who might be involved somewhere. Trying to make connections with people that can really help you in the long run. But going about it and not shying away from opportunities. So the Fox Sports Arizona connection that I made his name is Mark Rita. He's was the coordinating producer at Fox Sports. He knew a guy that my dad worked with because they went to church together. And as a result of that, just knowing someone that is a producer at Fox Sports, you take the meeting. So I met with him, and he had nothing to offer me the very first day. And just because he had nothing to offer me, it didn't mean I stopped. I continuously reached out. It's like in sales. They say in sales that, and I'm sure others who have gone further in sales than I have can speak to this, is it takes 8 to 10 touches to convert a sale in that realm. It's kind of like that in networking. Sometimes you got to make those periodic touches with someone and keeps top of mind and make sure that they remember that when a position does open up. I remember this guy, Jared, who seemed to be really interested and seemed to be someone who could contribute, and maybe I'll call him, make it easier than doing a full-fledged job search. So just keeping in touch with people is important, and not being afraid to burden them, not being afraid to say, oh, they're probably sick of hearing from me, or being afraid of what they might think. If you present yourself in a professional way and in a way that you feel like you could be an asset for someone ultimately, and be of value, then you're not going to be a burden. If anything, you'll just be ignored a couple times, or you'll get a short response that might amount to nothing, but at least you stay top of mind. So keeping those touches going and finding people that are worthwhile and not letting them leave your grasp, basically, is the important part. It's all about who you know, and in the end, you just you hope the best comes of it. And I'm a product of networking. I'm not a product of working an internship and moving up the pipeline. I'm a product of knowing people and being in the right place at the right time, or knowing the right person at the right time. And it's really important to be strong and persistent in that regard.
Yeah, I love your comment about building the connection and then fostering and nurturing that connection until the time does come to maybe position and ask or something like that.
Exactly.
Anyone else have any other comments? Yeah, Nicolette.
I'm very outgoing. I think that part of having a panel like this is you're going to get a lot of outgoing people, yeah. But my husband, not so much. And I tend to surround myself with people who are more of introverts. And what I see as being helpful in that whole networking world is to find yourself someone that you do feel comfortable with, whether that's a mentor or just a friend in the industry that you're interested in, and basically find yourself a buddy. So I go to a lot of different women's business events and a lot of different CPA events. And I have a few students that I've mentored over the years who I take with me to events like that, and try to engage them into conversations and make introductions. And you know, knowing they don't feel so comfortable just walking up to a group of people talking and bursting in, and knowing that I do, that's something that, you know, you might find someone who helps you get those introductions, who helps you do that. Ultimately, though, being an introvert doesn't mean you can't network. You do just have to eventually find your voice and use it. And the biggest advice I can give any human being in any way, shape, or form, and I hope this isn't too inappropriate for this conversation, but I always say we all fall down and we all fart. In other words, we all do things that are embarrassing and hard to overcome. Every single human being does. So don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. Have confidence. When you walk up, know that everybody that's standing there that you're going to walk up to and talk is just like you. They are human. They have fallen down. They have embarrassed themselves. They've done something wrong. They've failed a test. You know, there's no reason. You are a graduate of the U of A. There's no reason you can't walk up and make that introduction for yourself. So hopefully over time, you will just start to realize that that is something you've got to embrace and do. But in the meantime, find yourself someone who will help you do that. And the more they help you, perhaps the more you will get used to walking up and doing it yourself.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in here on this kind of question too, and maybe it'll segue to some more conversations, but I couldn't agree more. And when it comes to kind of like, really, I agree with Jared, like I'm a network of, or a product of networking. I would also say I'm extroverted, but when it came to reaching out to people, so I utilize LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, really, really recommend it. It's a great tool and resource, definitely for connecting with alumni, kind of like the Bear Down Network. But with that, one of the things that I did is I was always nervous to like ask if they had a position open or ask if they could refer me. And I think that's like maybe a lot of what you think you're kind of doing when you first start, when you're kind of looking for a job and want to network. And the purpose of networking is to kind of push your career somewhere. But I was too nervous to do that. And so that's actually not the route I took. And every time I reached out to someone, it was basically like, hi, whether they're always had some using LinkedIn, there's like connections. So whether it was through going to the same university or they're a friend of a friend, I'd reach out to them and just ask to have a conversation and learn about their job. I'd love to learn about your job and what you do day to day. I'd love to learn about how you landed that position. And it was just that simple ask and conversation. And then I would hop on a phone call, hopefully, and be able to ask those questions. And then almost every time, which was really cool, what I started finding is I actually never had to ask for a referral. If you come in with questions and you show that your intent, and just by you taking that first step of reaching out and that like little leap, already shows them that you're like, there's actually, I always think like a ton of people are doing this, but it's a lot of work. So not a ton of people are taking advantage of it, in my opinion. And so most of the time they were able to kind of come out and say, hey, you know, I'm like, thanks so much. Like, this is a great conversation. Like, are you looking for a job or stuff like that? I'd be like, oh yeah. And they'd be like, oh, well, I don't think we have anything open now, but I'd love to refer you. And that's when on my little sheet of notes, I'd put a big star by their name, so that hopefully one day, if I was still searching for a job and something came up, I could reach out to them and be like, hey, how's everything going? You kind of mentioned this, is this still a possibility? And so that kind of warmed me up into the process. But also can't like really stress that enough. Just, you have, I know we have some alumni and some students, and definitely for students, if you have this time, I think for me, one, it's important to not stress and know that like, I think Charles said was, you know, you're going to find your own path. Everyone has their own path. So kind of realizing that I maybe slacked a little too much in like the spring, but like, you know what, it's going to work out. And then of course, a pandemic came and changed everything. But with that, I luckily was fortunate enough to have the summer and my parents, like kind of Charles said, I'm living with my parents. And that was definitely not a goal of mine. Being a first generation student, going to college, I wanted to keep pushing that boundary and that limit. But with that, being able to use that privilege and that resource to kind of stay here and then put in the work. So if you have the time to start kind of building that network as you approach graduation or maybe some different milestones, definitely being willing to take the extra time on top of your other responsibilities and put in that effort. I think it'll really change kind of the outcome in the end.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. Justin, I want to jump in real quick and also just reiterate the second piece to this question about introverts and networking also has to do with this current time that we're in, and folks losing jobs and maybe being concerned about losing their own job and not maybe as receptive to these networking opportunities. And I think the advice that all the panelists would give you is you need to do this regardless. Everyone likes to talk about what they do, even if they hate their job. They like to talk about how much they hate their job. So we are encouraging you to utilize some resources that we have that can connect you with your fellow Wildcats. So you already have a warm connection with someone who has some experience very similar to yours. And even in this case, we want you to also approach this from a standpoint of information gathering and inquiry. You're not contacting these folks to straight up ask them for a job first thing. You are contacting individuals to learn more about what they do and how you might connect and be associated with that profession or that industry. So if you take it from a perspective of inquiry and self-discovery, the conversation will always go fabulously. If you take it from a perspective of I need a job and you're the person that's going to try and get me that job, then it's going to fail. So I just want to kind of close out that question in regard to the people are always willing to talk about what they do. You should not shy away from this outreach and inquisitive type information gathering.
Thank you. Yes. And I think we can all benefit from, connecting with Wildcats. And I think we have time for about one last question, and then we'll kind of close this webinar up. But panelists, you've talked about finding opportunities in the obstacles that you faced upon graduation. And so maybe as our final question, we just kind of round it out with, what is your advice for recent graduates or seniors looking to graduate in the next couple months? What advice would you have for them to take advantage of the opportunities that might be framed within this obstacle of the current job market? Charles, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah. Stay positive and keep your chin up. Always, always. It's really important to keep your chin up and stay positive, stay optimistic. I live in San Francisco right now, and I came from the Bay Area to Arizona. Some of the other schools that I was looking at, UCLA, USC, here in California, they always talk about this network and this thing and and this. Look, you're a U of A grad. We love you for showing up, and we appreciate you. And anyone that went to U of A, if they don't give you the time of day to connect with you, please let Justin or Lacey or myself know, because people want to help you, and people want to help you get to your next step in your career. That's really important. Along with what I had said earlier is this is your path. You own this path, and you're going to be the one that holds yourself accountable to your path. So I just want to let you know that, but stay positive, keep your chin up. I think the rest of the panelists are going to do this, but please reach out to me if you have any questions or want to connect over Zoom, phone, social media, whatever. I'm happy to be a resource. The U of A is a wonderful community, and we are just, I don't even know what the words would be. We're kicking butt, and I want to see the U of A and its community and its alumni kick butt and do great and amazing, wonderful things. So we want to see you do the same. So please reach out. Would love to be a resource. Keep your head up. Don't get down. And if you do, it's a learning experience. So that's what I have to say.
I'll just be. Go ahead, Nicolette. You first. Ladies first.
I would just say I agree 100% with Charles, and I would just segue from that and say, whenever I've made a career change over the last few years, especially here in Tucson, but just anywhere, I have gone back to my contacts that I made when I was still at the university. Pam Perry, the assistant dean of Eller, helped me get my first CFO opportunity. So while you're there, if you're still there, be sure you connect with the faculty and staff and stay in contact with them after you leave. If you're already gone from the university, reach back out to faculty or staff that you had a relationship with. And then also, as Charles said, and I think that Lacey's just given us the go-ahead that we can share our contact info with you, but yeah, reach out to anybody who is at the U of A, because I always say, you put the value, all of you 37 attendees who are still here with us, you put the value on my degree, right? If you're out there doing great, my degree stays worthwhile. If you're out there not doing so great, then the whole family is being kind of brought down. So I want to help you be successful. So reach out to faculty and staff that you may know, or reach out to any alums that you may know. And in a time like this, when it is hard to find the right position, we can be a great resource with connecting you within our networks. When you work in an industry, you always hear about so-and-so's looking for this or so-and-so's looking for that. So make those contacts. And even for the introverts, if you're making those contacts with somebody that you're already comfortable with, then there you go.
I'll just jump in quickly because the two of them did a great job nailing it. But the biggest thing I can just say is just to reiterate being versatile and not telling anyone you can't do anything, and get your foot in the door. If there's a company that you're really interested in, or a business that you think long term could be something that you would like, but the role that's available isn't necessarily what you envisioned yourself doing, it still could be worth your time if the job you want isn't there yet, just to get your foot in the door and get after it. I'm a testament to that. My wife was a receptionist for an insurance agency just so she could get a job, and 3 years later became that agency's director of ops, and then got hired to do another job, a step up from there. I know so many people that just started from just latching on with a company or a business or an industry that they liked, but not necessarily the exact job description, and turned it into a full-fledged career. And I can tell you from my perspective of where I am now in Troon, we communicate with each other in our network of associates available job opportunities really before it hits the open market. And so if there's people I know that started in I'll use accounting, for example, because of Nicolette. There's people that have started in accounting, but ultimately wanted to be a big data analytics finance person at the end of the day. And they've been able to start in payroll or accounting and work their way into more of the role that they saw themselves in, or being a coordinator in a marketing position and ultimately end up being a vice president. So don't be afraid to jump at some roles in a business too that could be interesting, and you could start to pave the way for creating the groundwork of the type of employee you'll be long term if they continue to stick with you and allowed you to grow within the company. Just to throw out there, I actually oversee the intern hiring process for my company. So I run those interviews with our team. So we do summer internships every year. So if there's people interested in the golf industry or just marketing in general, I can provide my contact information so we can begin to network now, so that by next summer, maybe we know each other a little bit and you'll have a leg up in front of everyone else, in addition to being a Wildcat, because I work with too many Sun Devils. So let's get that process rolling now, and maybe we can make something happen next summer. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, and I'll just finish up real quick because I know we're short on time. Obviously, I already wish I had reached out to Jared prior and networked sooner than this if there was summer internship opportunities. But in all reality, I think one thing that really helped me was just basically one of my mentors just told me, they were like, breathe, like it, just take a breath. I think one thing is I struggled with a lot of like anxiety and stress over needing to get a job as soon as I could. And for some people that is the situation, but it's never going to help in your interviews. You're going to be nervous if there's a lot more pressure. So just taking a second to know that it's serious and it'll be impactful. but kind of taking that second to breathe and act calmly and go through this process, whether it's networking or interviewing, anything like that, that really helped benefit me in a time that not only is my job stressful, but life's stressful. Everyone's communities are stressed out. And so just taking that effort to take a second and then go with confidence.
Thank you, everyone. We didn't get to everyone's questions, but like I said in the chat, we will send a follow-up email to everyone who has registered with the link to all the panelists' LinkedIn page, so you can direct message them and continue the conversation. We do have some resources here on the screen for you, so we encourage everyone to check those links out and stay connected to each other through the Bear Down Network, as well as the plethora of resources that are available through our student engagement and career development team. So thank you.
Let me jump in
everyone.
real quick, Lacey, and just go over a few of those things, because we did have a final question in the Q&A that was, how do I connect? And there's actually, a variety of ways in which you can do that. But the Bear Down Network is going to be a great place for you to start, because the Bear Down Network is already a population of Wildcats and Wildcat friends who have already said that I'm here and available and would like to offer my assistance. And we recently in SECD created a brand new program called 5 Steps to Build Your Network that actually leverages the power of the Bear Down Network along with the power of LinkedIn. I know LinkedIn was brought up earlier today as a resource that you need to be included on. And so if you don't have your LinkedIn profile already created, you'd want to get that done. So a combination of the Bear Down Network, LinkedIn, and these are great tools because they're online social media platforms. And so those introverts can easily send messages and connect without having to be, in a room full of individuals. And as in regard to opportunity, we are doing a Tucson Locals job fair coming up on November 5th. So it's Tucson Jobs Now. So if you're in the local area, you can look forward to that. But every one of our job positions and internships are also posted through Handshake, and opportunities are posted not just in Arizona in Handshake. So if you're not already in Handshake, that's a great resource for you as well. So Bear Down Network, Tucson Jobs Now coming up, Handshake, and the 5 Steps to Build Your Network program are all great ways that we can help you to expand your network. So just wanted to plug that in there, and thank you all again for being here, and thank you, Lacey, and the alumni here for the opportunity to join you today.
All right, that's a wrap. Bear Down Cats, thanks again for participating with us.